the Bible tells us about Jesus in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 1, verse 11. It says, he came unto his own, but his own received him not. In Afrikaans, hy het sy eendom gekom, en sy eie mense het hom nie aangeneem nie. He came unto his own, but his own received him not. I said, is that true? He said, yes. I said, daarom is Jesus nie soos Moses nie, maar Muhammad is soos Moses. I was practicing Afrikaans. Number 5. I said, Moses and Muhammad, they were prophets as well as kings. A prophet is a man who receives divine inspiration to guide his people, but he might not have the power of backing it up to implement the laws that he receives. For example, like Yunus alayhi salam, he delivered his message. He couldn't implement it. Lut alayhi salam, you know, his people went for abominations. Allah destroyed the people. But Yunus alayhi salam couldn't do anything. Lut alayhi salam, Yunus alayhi salam, Nuh alayhi salam. All these were prophets of God. They delivered the messages, but they couldn't implement the laws, the Sharia. They couldn't implement it. Yahya alayhi salam, no power to implement. So they were only prophets. Whatever they received, they delivered the message. But Musa alayhi salam was something more than that. He was a prophet as well as a king. Not with the title of a king, but a king, by that I mean one who has the power of life and death over his people. Whether you call him a president, call him a dictator, call him an emperor, call him what you like. If a man has the power of life and death, a simple word, we say he's a king. So Moses was such a man. He received divine inspiration. He delivered the message. And anybody broke the law, the adulterer and the adulteress are stoned down to death. And they would be stoned to death. They were told not to do any work on the Sabbath day, Yom Saturday. No work. Not even picking up firewood. So a man was found picking up firewood. So they brought him along and they stoned him to death for picking up firewood. That was the law. So he had the power of not only delivering the message but implementing the law. Our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, same. He was not only a messenger of God, but he had the power of life and death over his people. But Jesus Christ, when he came, and he was confronted by the Romans, the Jews implicated him, and he was brought for trial for treason. That was the trial, was for treason against the state, that this man is trying to pervert the nation, trying to create turmoil in the nation. So Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, questions Jesus. He says, art thou the king of the Jews? Are you the king? So Jesus says, thou sayest. That's what you say. So he said, am I a Jew to say that? But when he was questioned, pressurized further, he says, my kingdom is not of this world. My koninkrijk is nie van hierdie wêreld nie. If my kingdom was of this world, then my disciples would have taken up the sword to fight, which they didn't do. So my kingdom is not from hence, not from here, not an earthly kingdom. Mine is a spiritual kingdom, meaning I am a prophet of God, trying to guide people spiritually, not to shoot out or kill people, chopping off people's heads. No, that's not my job. I didn't come for that. So he says, my kingdom is not of this world. In other words, his is a spiritual kingdom. Moses had a spiritual as well as a material kingdom. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ also had a spiritual as well as a material kingdom. Jesus had only a spiritual kingdom. He was only a prophet. Is that true? So Dumini said, yes. I said, therefore, Jesus is not like Moses, but Muhammad is like Moses. Number 6. Moses and Muhammad ﷺ, they brought new laws and new regulations for their people. Before Moses, the Jews didn't have the 10 commandments. They didn't have a comprehensive law. They knew certain things about good and bad. They knew about God Almighty, but they didn't have a law. Hazrat Musa alayhi salam gives them the 10 commandments. And he gives them the laws of ceremonial law about purity, what is pak, what is napak, what is pure, what is impure, what to eat, what not to eat, and every little minutest detail which they didn't have before. New law, new regulation. The Arabs before Islam also had no law. They were a barbaric people. A nation that buried the daughters alive. They married the stepmothers. These Arabs, before in the Ayyamul Jahiliyyah, the days of ignorance before Islam. Drunkards, adulterers, gamblers, fratricidal wars over little things. They were fighting for decades. Gibbon, the master historian, in his Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, he describes the situation beautifully. He says, the human brute, the animal in human form, the human brute, almost without sense, is poorly distinguished from the rest of the animal creation. That the only thing that differentiates him between the animal and him is the form. Ahsani taqweem. Allah has made you in the best of forms. Otherwise, worse than animals. These Arabs, no laws, no regulations. From that, through Allah's kalam, the Quran, our Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the 23 years of his prophetic life, he transformed them into an angelic people. Thomas Carlyle, one of the greatest thinkers of the past century, he delivered a series of talks in England, and among his hero prophet, he chose our Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Not David as his hero prophet, or Solomon, or Moses, or Jesus. He chose the Holy Prophet Muhammad as his hero prophet. And in paying a tribute, he says, to the Arab nation, it was a birth from darkness into light. This new revelation, new message. It was a birth from darkness into light. Arabia became first alive by means of it. A poor shepherd people, roaming unnoticed in its desert since the creation of the world. These were the Arabs. Nobody would give them a second look. The human rubbish. That's what they were. Alexander the Great passed them by. The Persians passed them by. The Romans passed them by. Nobody was interested in this human rubbish. What are you going to do with them? They didn't know oil was going to come out there. They didn't know. They just passed them by. So see, the unnoticed becomes world notable. The small has grown world great. Within 1 century afterwards, Arabia was at Granada, that's in Spain, on one hand, and at Delhi on the other. Glancing in valor and splendor and the light of genius, Arabia shines over a great section of the world. He says, belief is great, life-giving. The history of a nation becomes fruitful, soul-elevating, great, so soon as it believes. Is it not as if a spark had fallen, one spark on a world of what seemed black, unnoticeable sand? But lo, the sand proves explosive powder, blazes heaven high from Delhi to Granada. This is what the message did, overnight. In decades, what the Roman Empire took 1,000 years to build, within decades, they built an empire greater than that of Alexander the Great, greater than that of Rome. What did it? It's this new, revitalizing message. The message of Islam did the job, change, transform the nation. New laws, new regulations. Moses brings new laws, new regulations. The Holy Prophet Muhammad brings new laws, new regulations. Jesus Christ, when he was confronted by the Jews, they were thinking that this man is bringing a new religion. So Jesus assures them, according to the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 5, verse 17, 18, and 19, he says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am come not to destroy but to fulfill. He says, Muni dink dat et gekom het om die wet of die profete te ontbind nie. Ek het nie gekom om te ontbind nie, maar te vervul, but to fulfill. I said, is that true? That's what he told the people, that he had brought no new laws, no new regulations. He has come to fulfill the law. He said, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, or shall teach men so, shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall teach and do, shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. He has come assuring the Jews with no new laws, no new regulations. He's only come to confirm, fulfill the previous revelation. Is that true? So he said, yes. I said, therefore, Jesus is not like Moses, but Muhammad is like Moses. Number 7.